Live and rolling once again. This is Road Gang Radio with your host, Jimmy Mack, coming at you from the heart of New Orleans, baby. Let's talk about it.
Hey, I told you guys when we were talking earlier that it is National Don't Step on a Bee Day. That's actually a thing. Don't step on a bee day. By the way, this next guest calls himself a longtime wannabe. I don't think that's fair. I think he's a longtime bee. He is very much present in his own life. As with his other TV series, The Aviators, Anthony Nalli is a driving force behind the RVers. He also serves as the show's executive producer and director. He and his wife, Lisa, and their two rescue dogs entered the RV world in 2015 in a big way. They sold their house and they started the RV life as newbie full-timers. It's great to have you on, by the way. Welcome to the show, and thanks for making the time on Road Gang Radio.
Thanks very much for having me.
So let's kind of unpack the story. I love a good origin story. I love the impulse. My normal co-host, who is on vacation this week over at Cape Cod, doing some stuff with her family, saying goodbye to some folks, getting some closure. She and her husband debated this as well, too, the idea of calling it a day and heading out on the road. Can you kind of talk about that impulse to say, you know what, that's enough of that. We're going to go out and do this thing, and we're taking the dogs along with us.
Well, you when you say impulse, it sounds like it's something that happens rather quickly, something that off the cuff. I could tell you that when we actually made the move, that was probably pretty quick in terms of, forget it. That's it. We're doing it. It's going to happen. That's it. However, it was probably about 20 years in the making. So it's sort of like the most drawn out, long, boring impulse that you could possibly have. But, I'm sure it's like that for many other things. But, we were enthralled with the notion of getting an RV and, hitting the open road and seeing the country and experiencing all sorts of things a good couple of decades ago. And then you go to an RV dealership, you have no idea what you're looking for. There's so many kinds of RVs, big, small, towables, drivables. And then you start to get overwhelmed. And then you go to like an RV show, and then same thing. You see a million different kinds of RVs, and unless you can narrow it down and really start refining what your preferences are, there's just so much to look at. So, we felt like we were kind of drinking from the garden hose. Not the garden hose. That would be easy. Drinking from a fire hose, rather. And then we thought, you know what? Let's take all this new information and go and digest it for a while. And then doesn't a week turn into a month, turn into a year, turn into a decade, and nothing happens. And then we essentially went through that whole process again. And then finally, in and around 2015, when we started doing that process for a third time, I was determined at that time, look, I'm not wasting time anymore. We've already done this twice. We've already wasted a good couple of decades of time that we could have been enjoying whatever RV we chose. Now it's time to actually do it. So we picked up a Class A, a really big Class A. And I remember one of the first pictures of me driving it was my wife following us home. And I was between two big rigs, and my back end of the RV, because it was a kind of a unique RV. It had like an upper level loft. So had a garage that we put our motorcycles in, and above the garage was like a 3 or 4 foot tall bedroom, like a loft bedroom that you climb up some stairs and then climb into. So that made our back end kind of taller. And that picture, I still see it, was driving along the highway with me in between two big rigs, and our profile, our butt profile, was just as wide and just as tall. So I felt like I had overnight just become a trucker.
I can imagine that, by the way. And I also, you kind of talked about the impulse being a long time coming. It makes me think about the great Hemingway quote when they asked Mike Campbell how he went broke, and he says 2 ways: gradually and then all of a sudden. And that's kind of the thing about an impulse to some degree, is the fact that an impulse, we often act on I guess, a long, low rumble underneath ourselves, and then eventually it seems to bubble up to the surface in an instant, and we finally kind of release it out there in the world. I'd also like you to talk about a little bit about the aviators, too, to kind of set this up, kind of bona fides and being able to put something like this together. This is not your first rodeo or your first ride around the block. So talk a little bit about that and how that sets you up uniquely, to talk about the RVers as well.
Yeah, well, back in 2010, we started with the aviators. And the aviators and the RVers are very, very similar in terms of what they're about. So they're both personal interests of mine. I've wanted to be a pilot my entire life. As a matter of fact, I wanted to be an airline pilot when I was going into high school, and I'm looking at my career choices, and I'm not the tallest guy in the world. I'm kind of short, and a guidance counselor told me at the time, "Oh, Anthony, I'm sorry, but there's a height requirement to be a pilot. You can't be a pilot." So that changed my lifelong dreams overnight, and so I didn't become a pilot, but turns out the guidance counselor was absolutely wrong. There is no height requirement.
No. I'm like, what are you talking about, man? That's like, you can't reach the pedals. What are you talking about? I mean, that's just
crazy. I know,
crazy.
It's crazy. Now, hey, when I had my Cessna, I did have some trouble reaching the pedals sometimes, but there are pedal extensions. I mean, there are things that you can do. You can tie a block to the pedals, for crying out loud. There's so many things that you can do, but anyway, I ended up becoming a private pilot once again when I was like 35 years old. So that took a couple of decades longer than it should have if I followed my dreams the way my instincts would have had me do. But I became a private pilot. I got my instrument rating, and that got me in the world of aviation. And I'll tell you, so many people are fascinated by aviation and may not even really realize it. Like, may not want to go to the point of getting their license and actually taking control of an aircraft. But, I mean, how many times do you drive by an airport, whether it's a big international airport or a small regional field, and there's just people sitting there at picnic tables or just peering through the fence, just watching the planes take off and land. I mean, it's a wondrous thing. So when we came up with the idea for the aviators, we didn't want to speak exclusively to pilots because, I mean, pilots get it already, I mean, we want to talk to those people who stand outside the fence at an airport watching them take off and land. And, obviously these are people who have, at least a passing interest in aviation. It is fascinating after all. And hopefully these people can get some inspiration from a show like The Aviators and maybe take a step, go out and take a $75 or however it costs now, an intro flight, and just go up with an instructor for 45 minutes or an hour and just experience it. And then maybe do that again and again. And before too long, you might just end up with your license.
By the way, I just keep thinking about it. If you guys don't understand the power of people wanting to fly, all I will say is I'll quote a song. Can't keep my eyes from the circling sky, tongue-tied and twisted, just a burnt-out misfit eye, of course. And that's David Gilmour actually recounting his own first experiences, the great guitarist. I bring up great guitarist because you're a fan of rock and roll as well. And we're going to get to the RVers here in a second. And by the way, guys, you can find the RVers at the RVers.TV, handsome website that really does a great job of kind of explaining what that is all about. You're also a musician, and Mike, the person whose name is all over this stuff, Dave Nemo, you're a drummer as well, are you not?
Yeah, well, that's what the guys in the band kind of make fun of me. They say we have a group full of musicians, and Anthony, our drummer. Then I started playing a little bit of keyboards, and they said, "Hey, our drummer's become a musician."
Oh, my God.
Okay, I get it, guys. But well, that's another thing that I've been doing my entire life. I mean, I was smacking on pots and pans with wooden spoons when I was, all of 2 years old, and my dad was a musician, and he decided to go and get me a toy drum set, so I'd at least be hitting something a little bit more purposeful than pots and pans. And I got to say, it was my maybe 7th or 8th birthday, he brought home like an actual drum set and said, oh, and I, of course, loved him. And I started banging on him and making noise, not playing, just making noise. And he said, okay, now these are real drums. You got to take lessons or I'm sending them back. So I took lessons, and then I started to actually play the drums and playing with meaning and joined bands and started doing stuff. And that's carried ever since. In fact, I got away from drums for about 15 years, and it was RVing, if you can believe it, that got me back into it. The strangest thing. We were at an RV resort in Phoenix, Arizona called Desert Shadows. Now we've made that our winter home kind of permanently now. But they had a talent show going on one February, and we were staying there at the time in our RV. And, of course, we're in an RV. So, I mean, the last thing you're going to carry around with you if you don't need to is surplus stuff. And, of course, a drum set.
I got my drum set. I got my drum set in the RV.
A drum set would qualify as surplus stuff for sure. Absolutely 100%. But they had a talent show, and I said, well, look, I'm a drummer. I don't have drums or anything, but if you guys have some drums, I'll play. But that got me thinking, wait a second, we have this loft bedroom above a garage with a couple of motorcycles in it. Well, you know, Lisa doesn't really ride her motorcycle a whole lot. So if we did carry Lisa's motorcycle, that would free up half the garage. And the other half of the garage, I could put, I don't know, maybe a really small electronic drum set in there. So I convinced my wife to let me go out and get an electronic drum set that had like a 3-foot by 3-foot footprint. And she agreed, and then that got me back into drumming. And of course, that drum set didn't stay 3-foot by 3-foot for very long. It grew exponentially into the beast that it's become. But yeah, that got me back into music. And then I met the guys in my band, and I've been in this band now for the past decade. And you know, we've done a couple of U.S. tours where we would promote the TV show. We would attend RV rallies and aviation rallies like Sun and Fun in Florida. And that's a good way to combine aviation, RVing, and drums, just like you've done in this interview. Well done.
And by the way, here's the final little cherry on top that actually gets us to the RVers. So one of the things that I wanted you to kind of talk about in regards to getting those drums on the RV is this is the reality of, for all the joys of the open road, for all the joys of embracing the wild, seeing the United States, every decision you make when it involves stuff, when it comes to living in an RV, is a logistical challenge that requires in-depth thinking. You have to always think about what you actually need as opposed to what you might want in the moment. Is that a fair assessment of RV lifestyle?
Yeah, it really is. And I guess to expand on that, things that can be multi-purpose, like Murphy beds or any kind of Murphy furniture, where a portion of your RV can be a sleeping space, in this configuration, but can be a lounging space in another configuration, or a working space with a desk where you can put a computer in another configuration. So anything that you can think of that either conserves space, collapses down to next to nothing, or that you can find some sort of alternative storage, like there's external compartments that you can latch onto your RV through like a bumper hitch or attach it to a ladder rack or something, or a roof rack. But these are all extra things. And of course, now they add weight. And, in aviation, weight and balance is very, very important. But you don't really think about it too much on the road, because when you're driving around in your Chevy, you don't really think about how much weight the groceries are, because they don't really make that much of a difference. But in an RV, when you're already driving a vehicle that weighs, thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of pounds, the weight starts to matter, because, braking distance matters. The wear and tear on your engine and transmission matters. I guess if weight gets, so high, then, damage to the road even matters. Safety starts to become an issue. So there's lots and lots of considerations when you're dealing with weight issues, but a lot of time it's more space in an RV that is the limiting factor.
And I wanted to ask you a question on the flip side of it. So do you find, and do you think, maybe it's you think, because, man, you're out there on the road now, but do you think that people who actually go back and forth between an RV and an actual fixed address often export some of those ideas from the RV to actually help them live more efficiently? And actually, so many people live in fixed residences of nothing but clutter, just the total accumulation of what I call Shasta, and you know what the actual word I mean is. And so what I'm getting at here is, do you feel like that maybe spending some time in an RV, if in fact that's what you want to do? I'm not recommending people who want to declutter their lives simply go to an RV, but do you feel like that there is some wisdom that can inform people in fixed residences? I mean, hoarding is something different, but to avoid the kind of accumulation of stuff that goes on in our life, is there sort of a zen in the art of RV maintenance and RV lifestyle that can be then exported back to the home?
Well, if there is any Zen to that, I am not the Zen master of that. I definitely am a gadget guy. I am definitely someone who likes to accumulate things. Says this during, the midst of Prime Days happening on Amazon right now, where I'm thinking, okay, this is my last chance to get 20% off on something. So, I mean, as far as, scaling back on the junk, that's not really me. But when it comes to an RV, you're kind of forced to. You can't just have everything. It's got to be, efficiency is key. I mean, you want to bring tools, for example. I've got all kinds of tools because if you get on the road and have a problem, which is basically 100% of the time, if you don't have tools to fix that problem, then the problem just became so much worse. I mean, so many problems can be solved using the right tool at the right time, the right way. And if you remove one of those things, it's just way more of a pain than it needs to be. But you can't have every tool in the world or every tool that you'd have in a complex garage or shop in your RV. So you find, smaller versions of them. So it's like stubby screwdrivers instead of full-size screwdrivers. I don't know what that saves you a few inches here and there, but everything adds up, So, I mean, you start to learn what you need to bring, what you should bring, and what you shouldn't bring. And the one cardinal sin, and, even after RVing for so many years, we still do it. We start off in the north where we spend our summers and spring and fall, and then we head down to Phoenix in the wintertime. And we have everything that we need in Phoenix, and we have everything that we need in our northern location. And for the trip, we kind of already have everything that we need in the RV. So the idea is when it's time for us to go to Phoenix, you basically don't need to pack. You just leave one place, go into the RV where you're going to live for the next few days on the road, and then head into the place in Phoenix where you have all that stuff. Yet we still manage to find a way to find the necessity to pack some extra stuff, and invariably you pack too much of it. And then when you get there, it's like, man, we didn't use any of this stuff. And you commit to yourself, next year we're going to bring less stuff. And next year you may or may not do that.
I want to once again take an exit ramp here and talk about the show now in detail. There is a market here. There, and I say market, I should also mean a community. By the way, I'm too much in Prime Amazon, so you have to forgive me. It's basically the overall size of the RV community, according to your own notes, in the U.S. exceeds over 30 million people, and many of the most popular RV organizations boast membership in the hundreds of thousands. So doing a show like this, a popular show like this, really kind of speaks to the fact that there's an audience for this, not just an audience who's doing it, but an audience who is actually contemplating this. And have you found in your journeys when you encounter those who are traveling but not RVing it, have the questions been getting louder and louder? Have more Americans been approaching you and saying, hey, we're thinking about this. Hey, Anthony, what do you think? How do we go about doing this? And, you said that it wasn't actually an impulse. It was an impulse born of years of contemplation. What do you tell people who are watching the show, consuming its content, and say, that looks like fun? Do you feel like you give enough of the difficulties of what it is out there to make sure that they're informed as to what kind of choices they'll be making if they choose to join the joy that is out there?
Well, that's a terrific question. The whole purpose of the RVers isn't, I don't want to say it's not for RVers. It's absolutely for RVers because it shows you ways that you can use your RV, ways that other people are utilizing and enjoying RVing, perhaps in a way that you hadn't thought of at all, maybe, or a way that you hadn't considered yet. So it just kind of opens more opportunities for you. It gives you more ideas. But I think even more importantly, very similar to what the Aviators was before it's for those people, and we've had so many people come up to us over the years, seeing us in our RV, going around doing stuff and saying, well, you know what, when I retire, I want to do that. Or, hey, you're living my life. And there's a couple of things there. Number one is, I'm not living your life. This is a life that's livable by anybody.
Yeah, you
All
also want to say,
do
do you play drums? Because unless you play drums, you're not living my life. I just wanted to kind of point that out.
Yeah, really. Yeah, I can certainly complicate it that much more if I wanted to challenge them on me living their life or vice versa. But basically, go out and get any RV, whether it's a huge $1 million luxury RV or a $5,000 beater that your neighbor was trying to get rid of. Once you've got one, then just use it. Whether you're going out for a weekend once a year or a few weeks every couple of years, or whether you're going to full time, it doesn't matter how you use it. Just use it, because you will 100% find enjoyment. And these people that are saying, you're living my life, or I'm going to do this when I retire. Well, that's great. That's a lofty ambition, but tomorrow is not guaranteed. And one thing that we realized, having belabored our entry into RVing for a couple of decades, is that's lost time. I mean, we could have just gotten some kind of a beater RV 20 years ago just to get in there and experience it and start enjoying it. And then, trade up and trade up and trade up. And we could have ended up with the RV that we have today, or not, or something else might have, it might have evolved a little bit differently. But you got to do it any which way you can, because, I mean, you're going to go on vacations. I mean, people probably want to go on more vacations than fewer, of course. But over the course of your life, you will be going on vacation. Just think of RVing as another way to go on vacation. And instead of spending a lot of money on a trip far away that, at the end of the week or what have you, it's just gone forever. You can invest some of that saved money, buy a relatively inexpensive RV that you can tow behind whatever vehicle that you're driving right now, and just get started that way and just experience it. And you know what? The resale market's still pretty good. During COVID, it was insane how crazy it was. But, if it's not for you, and it's not for everyone, if it's not for you, you sell it, because it'll sell. It'll sell. RVs are hot items, and it just makes you kind of life that you can experience for yourself and for your family just completely different, very, very different than anything else you might experience.
By the way, guys, I want to let you know, if you haven't seen the RVers.tv, if you haven't made your way over to Anthony Nalli's site, it's important to point out, too, this is not reality television, it's lifestyle television, and I'm distinguishing those two for you. I want people to understand this isn't an ongoing series of manufactured dramas. It really is useful information and kind of a slice of life to give you a chance to look at the problems and the issues and the joys that often result from this sort of lifestyle. This isn't about who doesn't like who and what's going on and the typical tensions. It really is, and there's a real hunger for that out there as well, too, that people want less of, like, who said what to whom kind of nonsense, and more of, how did you do that? How does that work? How did you deal with that problem? How did you solve that issue? And what kind of fun did you have? That's fair assessment from at least what I've consumed.
Well, I really appreciate your saying that, because some people do call the show a reality show, but let's be very careful about what reality shows are. They are the furthest thing that you can imagine from actual reality. You say it quite accurately, the manufactured drama, the conflict that doesn't need to exist. I remember watching an aviation-based reality show some years back, and of all the adventure that you can find at any given aviation event or air show, they created some drama out of the fact that a part that they were waiting for was late. And the whole, going to commercial and then, oh, no, we're not going to get it. It basically revolves around a FedEx delivery. I mean, that's the kind of manufactured drama. They're creating drama out of a delayed FedEx delivery on an aviation show because they couldn't find anything else exciting out of aviation. I mean, that's just insane.
That's insane.
So much going on, I mean, that's reality TV where it's just nonsense. And quite honestly, Aviators, RVers, all of my shows, I like to think, reflect my passion for the subject matter. And I think reality shows, they're just a conveyor belt of remanufactured false drama concepts that are, whether it's a junkyard or a storage locker or what have you, they just change the venue and it's the same formula over and over again. We've decided we're not going to do that.
Yeah, and it makes a big difference, by the way, because it really means, I was talking to Dre about this, and he was talking about the predictability of certain plots on certain television shows, but he said he didn't care. And he said, I don't know why I keep watching the show when I know how the plots are going to play out. And I said, you don't care because you like the performers and you just like spending time with them. And there really is a genre for that where, I don't know, I mean, maybe I just want to check in and spend some time with people I really like and watch them solve genuine problems. It's a format that does work, does it not?
Well, it does. It's worked for us for 8 seasons on Aviators. It's worked for us for going into 7 seasons on RVers. And both show no signs of ending. RVers, we're working on season 7 right now. We've already gotten some filming in the can that we are putting into season 8. So we've got every intention of taking RVers at least another few years. And something our viewers are telling us, they're really, really increasingly interested in segments that revolve around travel, which seems like odd to say for RVing. Of course, it's travel, but sort of RVing in a bit of a unique way. We've done a couple of RV tours with Fantasy RV Tours, and you think, why do I need to attend a tour if I'm going in my RV and I'm doing the driving? But we went down to Mexico, and I would never have considered driving an RV on my own in Mexico in a million years, just for a lot of reasons. Just that, you have to have separate insurance. I wouldn't have known that if I hadn't done that. So I would have shown up at the border, and they would have asked me about my insurance. And I'm thinking my insurance is good, and it's like, no, it's not Mexican insurance, and that would have puzzled me. So that's just the simplest of things that they help you overcome. But I'll tell you, I'm not a tour guy. I don't like to go to all these. It's not my thing. It's not my thing. But I'll tell you, I did my first RV tour, which was actually just aired last Sunday on Destination America, the episode that encompassed my first RV tour. And it was fantastic. I would very much recommend that to anybody who really has an RV, wants to do things with it, and doesn't really know where their limits lie. They think that a grand tour might be a little beyond their planning and execution skills. Well, that's where an organized tour comes in. And, at the end of the day of participating in all kinds of great things and meals and hanging out with people and doing cool things, you go back to your RV and nestle in and snuggle up to your dog and do it all again the next day. It's just terrific.
We're out of time, by the way. I need you to make me a promise that sooner rather than later you'll come back, because my co-host lives for this conversation, and she had to go on a genuinely important break over the course of the week. I want to let people also know that the RVers will air on broadcast TV, on Discovery, as well as PBS across Canada, on the Wild Pursuit Network, Bell's TV Czech, as well as internationally through Cana Media, CANA Media. The series is also available digitally on Apple TV, formerly iTunes, Amazon Prime Video, Google Play, Microsoft Xbox, and Vudu. Anthony, I feel like I made a friend. I am so glad you could join us this morning. My producer had questions for you. People out there had questions for you. Promise me you'll come back, please.
Absolutely will. It's been great fun and a great honor. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you, sir. Anthony Nalli, of course, is the creator of the Aviators, and for the purposes of this conversation, the RVers. Go to the RVers.tv.